3.2%. That's the share of American households with $1 million or more sitting specifically in retirement accounts right now. Not total net worth, not home equity, not whatever a financial advisor told them they're worth on paper. Actual money in 401ks and IRAs that will fund their lives when they stop working. 3.2%. But here's the layer the title didn't give you. Even that 3.2% is largely underpowered for a genuine retirement in 2026. $1 million. At the standard 4% withdrawal rate, the model every major research institution uses for sustainable retirement income generates $40,000 per year. Add the average Social Security benefit, and a retired household is looking at roughly $64,000 in annual income. The current median American household income for working families is about $77,000, which means the milestone everyone has been sprinting toward for their entire career lands them below median income in retirement. The finish line is in the wrong place. The map hasn't been updated in 40 years. And most people don't figure this out until they're 58, staring at a balance that needed another zero added to it 15 years ago. This video is about who actually has enough saved, why the $1 million benchmark is now a dangerous cultural artifact, what the Social Security actuaries have specifically documented is coming in 9 years, and what it means in real dollars on a monthly basis, and what separates the 1.8% who retire with genuine financial security from the 98% who retire into a version of financial stress they never saw coming. By the way, I built a free early retirement calculator because most online ones are mathematically wrong. They treat healthcare inflation the same as general CPI, which compounds at roughly twice the rate. Mine uses BlackRock and Vanguard methodology to expose the specific weak points in your plan, and I only need your email to send you the report. No financial data stored on my end. Link is in the description. Here's the metaphor I'm going to use throughout this entire video. Hold on to it because it returns at every important moment. Retirement saving is a long-haul flight. The plane departs the moment you take your first real job. The destination is financial independence. Estimated arrival, around 65. The fuel is your invested capital. Every contribution adds fuel to the tank. Every year of compound growth stretches that fuel further. And every lifestyle inflation decision, the car upgrade you financed instead of banking a raise, the contribution pause you took at 34 when the budget felt tight, the kitchen renovation that went on a home equity line, each of those is a fuel leak. Not catastrophic in any single moment. Accumulated across 30 years, they leave you circling the landing strip at 64 with the gauge blinking, watching other planes land, wondering what went wrong. The 1.8% who retire with 2 million or more kept the fuel tank topped off from the moment they boarded. Every decision in this video comes back to the fuel tank. In a few minutes, I'm going to show you a specific projection the Social Security Administration published in their own annual report that most people have never seen translated into actual dollar amounts, and it changes the retirement math for anyone under 62. But first, let me establish exactly how broken the baseline is, because most people dramatically overestimate where the average American stands on retirement savings, and that overestimation creates a very dangerous sense of false comfort. The median retirement account balance across all American households right now is approximately $87,000, not the bottom quintile. The median, half of all American households, have less than $87,000 specifically in retirement accounts. These are full-time workers, tax-paying adults who enrolled in their employer's plan because HR handed them a form during onboarding, people who believe they are doing the responsible thing. At the 4% rule, $87,000 generates $3,480 per year from the portfolio, about $290 a month. Add Social Security averaging about $23,000 annually for an individual, and the typical American retiree household is looking at approximately $26,000 per year in total income. The federal poverty line for a two-person household sits around $23,000. So the median retired American is living about $3,000 above poverty in 2026. With property taxes, prescription costs, and the refrigerator that will eventually need replacing. Now, narrow the view to people actually at retirement age. For households headed by someone between 65 and 74, the median retirement account balance is approximately $200,000, better than $87,000. But at 4% withdrawal, that's $8,000 per year from investments. Add Social Security and you're at about $32,000 to $36,000 in annual household income. That is the actual financial reality of the median American retirement, not the brochure version. Let me tell you about a man I'll call Martin. He's a composite of several real conversations, but every element of his situation exists for someone you know. Martin worked 32 years as a facility supervisor for a regional hospital network in the Midwest. Salary peaked around $75,000 in his late 50s. He owned his house outright, never carried a credit card balance past the statement date, fixed things himself instead of hiring people. His neighbors used him as the benchmark for responsible adult behavior. When people in his cul-de-sac talked about someone who had their life together, they mentioned Martin. He retired at 64 with $162,000 in his 401k. He felt okay about this. He had the house. He had Social Security. 32 years of steady employment and consistent contributions to a plan he trusted was working. Here's what the math actually said. Social Security, $24,000 per year. 401k at 4% withdrawal, about $6,500 annually. Total, $30,500. His property taxes alone ran $8,200 per year. His supplemental Medicare plan, the one that covers what parts A and B don't cost him, about $4,000 annually. Before he bought a single grocery item, $12,200 was already spent, leaving him $18,300 for the entire cost of living a year. Food, utilities, car insurance, home maintenance, medical copays, the water heater that was clearly going soon. The furnace went first, January, $6,000 repair. Emergency fund, gone. 4 months later, a root canal and crown. His dental insurance covered at 60%, out of pocket, $3,200. Martin is now rationing the remnants of his savings inside a house worth $600,000 that he cannot easily access without a reverse mortgage. The house that was supposed to be his monument to 30 years of doing things right has become a liquidity trap. Martin is not a cautionary tale about reckless behavior. Martin is the median. He followed the map he was given. The map was wrong. Here is the reversal I want to land precisely. You probably think the retirement savings crisis is fundamentally about Americans spending too much or not earning enough. That explanation is culturally comfortable and empirically incomplete. The deeper problem is a benchmarking failure. Americans built their mental model of retirement success around a number that was genuinely meaningful in the 1980s and has never been updated. In 1985, $1 million at 4% withdrawal generated $40,000 a year in a country where the average household spent about $22,000 annually. You were almost double average expenditure, legitimately comfortable. In 2026, $40,000 from investments plus Social Security puts you below median household spending. The target never moved. The costs did. Martin followed the old map into completely changed terrain. The functional number for retirement security in 2026 is $2 million. 4% of $2 million is $80,000 per year from your portfolio. Add combined Social Security for a couple about $48,000 annually, and you're at $128,000 in household retirement income. That covers housing, healthcare, realistic travel, and the furnace dying without constituting a financial emergency. That's the actual finish line, not luxury, function. 1.8% of American households have 2 million or more, specifically in retirement accounts. About 2.4 million households out of 131 million total. The other 128.5 million are somewhere below that line. Most of them are significantly below it. And somewhere right now, a financial advisor is reading that statistic and thinking, yes, but my clients should consider a diversified portfolio of actively managed funds with meaningful alpha potential and a 1.2% expense ratio. The S&P 500 has outperformed 92% of actively managed domestic equity funds over 20-year periods. Just leaving that there. Now, I want to introduce Derek, and I'm going to carry his story through the rest of this video because he represents a large portion of the people watching this right now. Derek is 42 years old. He manages logistics for a distribution company. He earns $110,000 a year, has been contributing to his 401k since 30, always at the 6% default rate his HR department enrolled him at. Company matches 3%. Current balance, $148,000. He's in the top 20% for his age group by balance. He knows most people have less saved than he does. He says retirement is on his list of things to sort out. At his current trajectory, Derek retires at 65 with approximately $620,000. Not a million, $620,000. His 4% withdrawal generates $24,800 per year. Add Social Security, and Derek retires on about $52,800 annually. He will spend his retirement running mental arithmetic before every discretionary purchase, over $100. He doesn't know this yet. Derek is the reason what comes next matters. Here is the section of retirement math that most people understand in theory, and almost nobody has absorbed emotionally. And the gap between those two things is where most retirements quietly derail. When you are 28 years old and you contribute $12,000 to a retirement account in a year where the market returns 7%, your balance climbs from $42,000 to roughly $56,000. You contributed $12,000 and compound growth added about $2,000 on top of that. The reward for a full year of sacrifice driving the older car, skipping the vacation your friends were posting about, staying in the smaller apartment, is that your balance went from 42 to 56,000. That is the actual emotional experience of early retirement saving. It is genuinely unsatisfying. It looks like almost nothing, and it is precisely at this moment that most people reduce contributions, pause them entirely, or let lifestyle inflation gradually erode the percentage until the absolute dollar contribution is nominally higher but proportionally smaller every year. Every $1,000 redirected from retirement to lifestyle at age 30 costs approximately $7,600 at 65, assuming 7% real return. Every $1,000, every month, year over year. But cross $500,000 in your retirement account, and the character of the entire game changes. At $500,000 invested at 7%, the account generates $35,000 in annual growth without you contributing a single additional dollar. $35,000. Your invested capital now earns approximately what a full-time American worker earns at the median wage, except it does this 24 hours a day, every market session, regardless of whether you are awake or asleep or on a beach somewhere. The money has its own momentum. At $500,000, the portfolio doubles to $1 million in roughly 10 years. The million doubles to $2 million in another 10. Hit 500,000 by 45 and compound growth alone gets you to 2 million by 65 without adding another dollar. The entire strategic game is to cross the 500,000 threshold as fast as humanly possible and then have the emotional discipline not to destroy what you've built when the market drops 30% and every signal your nervous system says to move to safety. Most people quit before the inflection point. They're at 410,000 at 44 and they're renovating the kitchen. $23,000 away from the threshold where the math becomes self-sustaining and they're choosing granite countertops, the fuel tank comes back every single time. They just keep punching holes in it. By the way, hit subscribe if you like the content. Otherwise, YouTube's algorithm may never show you my videos again. Now, here is the most underreported story in American personal finance right now. I don't say that for drama. I say it because this information lives in a public government document that generates about 48 hours of news coverage per year and then completely disappears from the conversation. The Social Security Board of Trustees publishes an annual report on the financial condition of the program. The 2024 edition projects that the combined Social Security trust funds will be depleted in 2033, 9 years from now. When those reserves reach zero, current federal statute requires an automatic benefit reduction of approximately 23% applied immediately to all recipients without any congressional vote and without any presidential signature. Automatic, mandatory, written into law. In dollars, the average Social Security benefit for a retired individual is about $24,000 per year. A 23% cut reduces that to approximately $18,500. A permanent loss of $5,500 every single year for every remaining year of retirement. For a married couple receiving combined benefits of about $48,000 per year, the cut is roughly $11,000 annually. $11,000 every year. Gone. Starting in 2033. The structural reason this keeps not getting fixed is almost genuinely funny, except the punchline costs people their financial security. Every available solution, raising the payroll tax cap, modestly increasing the retirement age, means testing benefits for higher earners carries enough political risk that no elected official wants their fingerprints on it before an election. So every Congress agrees the issue needs to be addressed by the next Congress. The actuaries update the depletion date. The report generates a news cycle of about 2 days. The can advances 12 months further down the road. Congress's plan for Social Security solvency. Schedule a bipartisan commission, release a white paper, form a committee to evaluate the white paper, issue a strongly worded statement about how important the issue is. Repeat after next election. The depletion date is 2033. The committee is still scheduling its first meeting. Back in 2000, there were 3.4 workers paying Social Security payroll taxes for every one beneficiary receiving benefits. Today, the ratio is about 2.7 workers per beneficiary. By 2035, the SSA projects it falls to 2.3. The math is demographic. The baby boom is retiring faster than the birth rate replenished the workforce behind it. You cannot fund an expanding retiree population on a contract and contributor base without either increasing revenue or reducing payments. There is no third option that isn't also painful, which is why Congress has been innovating around it for 26 consecutive years. A financial planner I know runs a test on every client under 63 now. He takes their retirement projection and reduces their Social Security income by 15%, then reruns the plan. If it still works, they are genuinely secure. Their financial independence is not contingent on what Washington does or doesn't do. If it only works with full benefit values, they have a documented dependency risk that the SSA's own actuaries have already quantified. Roughly 40% of his clients fail that test. He told me those are the conversations that actually matter. The 1.8% with 2 million in retirement accounts genuinely don't care which scenario plays out. Their plan functions in both. That is the actual functional advantage of reaching 2 million, not status, not a lifestyle upgrade, structural independence from political outcomes. The fuel tank is full enough that it doesn't matter if the co-pilot shows up or not. Now let me show you what the real path to 2 million actually looks like with concrete numbers, because I want to thoroughly address the assumption that this requires either a very high income or some external windfall that most people aren't getting. Alicia is 40 years old, project manager at a software company. She earns $92,000 per year, single, rents in a mid-tier city, has been contributing to her 401k since 28 at 8% of salary. Employer matches 4%. Current balance, $189,000. No consumer debt. Has not invested outside her 401k. At her current rate, 8% contribution, 4% match, 7% real return from her existing balance. Alicia projects to approximately $1,090,000 at 65. Barely crosses 1 million. Add Social Security of roughly $28,000 annually, and she retires on about $72,000 total income. Manageable, not genuinely comfortable, especially after 25 years of healthcare inflation compounding at 5 to 6% annually on top of general inflation. Here's the change. Alicia increases her contribution from 8% to 15%. Additional cost, $6,440 per year. Redirected from spending to her retirement account, about $537 per month less in take-home pay. She finds it by canceling a gym membership she has been meaning to cancel for 8 months, dropping 2 overlapping streaming subscriptions, and deciding to drive her current car 3 more years rather than 1. None of these constitute dramatic life change. They are mild, sustained inconveniences. With that adjustment, her annual retirement contributions reach approximately $17,400, including the employer match. At 7% from her current balance over 25 years, her 401k alone projects to about $1,650,000. She also opens a Roth IRA and contributes the maximum $7,000 per year. Over 25 years, at 7% starting from zero, that Roth grows to approximately $450,000 additional dollars. Total, just over $2 million. Alicia crosses from below $1 million to $2 million by making one adjustment and opening one account. The entire gap between her original trajectory and her new one is $537 per month redirected from spending a gym membership, 2 streaming services, and 3 additional years with the same car. The math is almost aggressively simple when you lay it out this way, which makes the next question genuinely interesting. If the path is this straightforward, why don't most people take it? The financial decisions that determine retirement outcomes are almost never made during calm, rational moments of analysis. They're made during moments of social comparison, desire, and genuine emotional pressure. Your colleague pulls up to work in a new car, and your 3-year-old Honda feels less adequate than it did 20 minutes ago, even though nothing about your car changed. You see a neighbor's renovation, and your kitchen looks dated in a way it didn't before you saw theirs. Every one of those moments is a micro decision point between the fuel tank and a fuel leak. And the brain is not neutral in those moments. It is actively working against your retirement because evolution built it to prioritize immediate reward over distant benefit, and 30-year compound growth is about as distant a benefit as the human nervous system can meaningfully process. Behavioral economists Shlomo Benartzi and Richard Thaler developed a program in the late 90s called Save More Tomorrow. The premise was elegant. Instead of asking workers to increase contributions right now, which the brain processes as a concrete present tense loss, ask them to pre-commit to automatic increases tied to future raises. Because the sacrifice happens on money they don't have yet, the brain doesn't register it as deprivation. Employees who enrolled quadrupled their savings rates over a few years without ever subjectively experiencing any reduction in lifestyle. The framing change did essentially all of the work. Virtually every major retirement plan now offers automatic contribution escalation based on this research. Most employees have never clicked the checkbox. That checkbox is the fuel valve. It tops off the tank before the money hits your checking account and becomes available to be spent on something that feels more immediately relevant than retirement in 23 years. You cannot talk yourself out of spending money you never had access to in the first place. Here is the 3-level framework I use when thinking about where someone is and what they need to do next, calibrated specifically to this problem. The first level is the floor. You contribute the minimum required to capture your full employer match. If the company matches 4%, you contribute at least 4%, no exceptions. You invest in a target date index fund matched to your retirement year. You set automatic 1% annual increases. You do not move to cash during market corrections. You do not pause contributions when things feel expensive. This is not a wealth building strategy. This is the strategy for not retiring on $30,000 a year. Non-negotiable minimum. The second level is momentum. You max your 401k, $23,500 in 2025, if you're under 50. $31,000 if you're 50 or older. You also max a Roth IRA on top of that $7,000 per year, $8,000 in the catch-up range. Low-cost S&P 500 and total market index funds. Annual rebalance. No market timing, no active management, no news-driven allocation changes. This is where the 1.8% lives. Started at 35 and maintained through 65, this produces $2 million at historical average market returns with high probability. The third level is acceleration. All tax advantage accounts maxed. Taxable brokerage accounts running in parallel backdoor Roth conversions if income exceeds direct contribution limits. annual tax optimization with a specialist who handles retirement planning specifically rather than just tax filing. This level produces financial independence in the mid to late 50s for people with sustained high income and the discipline to not let lifestyle inflation outpace savings. It's not complicated. It's the boring things done at higher dollar amounts for a longer time. Here's the trap almost everyone falls into: spending months learning level 3 strategies, backdoor Roths, covered calls, direct indexing, tax loss harvesting, while not yet having fully executed level 1. They're trying to optimize a system they haven't built yet. Complexity functions as a form of productive procrastination. The person who maxes a plain vanilla S&P 500 index fund inside a 401k for 30 years, contributes automatically, and never watches financial news will almost certainly retire better than the person who spent 3 years mastering option strategies and applied them expensively during a correction. I've run a business for more than 10 years. I've spent a significant portion of that time in rooms with accountants and fiscal attorneys who manage money for people you will never see on a magazine cover. People who will quietly retire at 57 or 58 with 8 and 9 figure portfolios. I have multiple hundreds of thousands of dollars invested myself. This is not theory for me. It's actual skin in the game. And I've never once heard a genuinely wealthy person describe their financial security as the product of a sophisticated strategy or a clever market call. Every single conversation sounds like a variation on the same story. High savings rate, started early, boring index fund exposure, held through the corrections without panicking, never did anything clever during a downturn. They kept the fuel tank topped off, and they did not touch the controls when the weather turned bad. That's the whole story. Derek called his HR department. He increased his contribution from 6% to 14%. He declined the car upgrade. He is now projected to retire at 65 with approximately $1,200,000 instead of $620,000. Not $2 million. But a retirement where he doesn't run mental arithmetic before replacing a pair of shoes. He changed his trajectory by roughly $600,000 by making one phone call and saying no to one car. The call took about 4 minutes. The math to get from where you currently are to a retirement that actually works is almost always one decision away. One phone call. One checkbox in an enrollment portal. The people who will never reach the 1.8% won't read that sentence any differently than Derek did. They'll think, yeah, I should do that and defer it until a week that's less busy. Derek made the call. The fuel tank is going back up. 3 things to actually do when this video ends. Not ideas to consider, decisions to make. First, recalibrate your target from 1 million to 2 million. Stop planning toward a benchmark calibrated for 1985 costs. Run your actual retirement numbers against 2 million and find the real gap. The calculator in the description does this properly, accounting for healthcare inflation separately from general CPI. Most people find the gap is more closable than they thought once they can see it with accurate numbers rather than outdated assumptions. Second, log into your 401k portal today or call HR and implement automatic 1% annual contribution increases starting next January. If your plan doesn't offer the feature natively, set a recurring calendar reminder on January 1st to do it manually each year. Vanguard's annual research shows this single mechanism predicts final retirement account balance better than virtually any other variable, including income level. It works because it removes the decision from the moment of temptation and executes it before the money is ever available to spend. Third, run a version of your retirement projection where Social Security pays you 75 cents on the projected dollar. If that version of the plan still works, you are structurally independent of political outcomes you land regardless of what Congress does. If it only works at full benefit value, you have a documented dependency on a political process that the SSA's own actuaries have already flagged as unreliable. Close that gap while the runway is still long enough to close it. The flight is still in the air. The fuel gauge is the only number that matters. Lazy investing built more fortune than crypto memes. The people who understood that at 25 rather than 51 are somewhere right now doing exactly what they want to do because nobody is making them do anything else.